Call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Vallecitos Water District, Wednesday, July 17th at 5 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance. Could I ask Wes Owen, our Finance Manager, to lead us in the pledge?
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Wes. Okay, we're going to do an electronic roll call.
Did I get it?
Yes, you do. Director Evans?
It's blinking, did I not push it?
There, now it is, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Attendance is good. With the exception of Director Smith.
Director Sinell is missing Z. Right, thank you. Consent calendar. I'm sorry, I jumped way ahead there. Adopt the agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public comment. Any person wishing to address a matter not on the agenda may be heard at this time. However, no action will be taken until the matter is placed on a future agenda in accordance with board policy. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. A request to speak form is required to be submitted. And you should start by stating your name, address, and the topic. The board is not permitted during this time to enter a dialogue with the speaker. We have one request to speak for. Mr. Hunsaker.
Mike Hunsaker, 115 Equestrian Court. Interested in how fire line charges are established. Nor in any financial reports are these explained. I've seen in some districts where they have a certain budget and then they divide by the total number of inches of fire lines that are available, and that determines the rate. We have a rate of, I think, $5.87 or something like that. So how is that established? Is there a budget request, or does this just go into a black hole in the general fund? I'd also like to mention that I hope in the future when you do new bonds, we apply one of the better, more ratepayer-friendly options as far as covenants. I'm talking in terms of getting a high rating based on some assurance that the bond holders will get paid. There are 3 ways to do this. One is to buy insurance. This usually costs about 1/4 to 1/2%. And that isn't too bad a cost for EWD at the present time. The second way is to maintain a reserve up to usually 6 months to a year. This is very attractive because you can keep your money in reserves and gathering interest. It doesn't really cost you anything. The third route is to charge 15% above your operating costs each and every year. Now there's typically, this can go back to the ratepayers the following years, or it goes into general fund or some sort of reserve. This is the most costly to ratepayers, and this is what was done in the last bond release. I'm hoping we do not repeat that mistake. Thank you. Although it's too late to do anything about it.
Thank you very much. Moving on.
Not off.
Where's Margaret Ferguson?
Yeah.
When you need her. We're gonna move on to introductions. HR analyst Bridget is gonna introduce maybe 3 new employees. 2 for sure, though.
I definitely have 2 for you.
Great.
I will start with Jesse Allegre. Right. He was hired June 24th as a construction worker 1. It's a position that was vacant due to a promotion. He joins us from the city of Poway, where he worked for 4 years in the utilities department. In his free time, he enjoys spending time with his son and his wife. He also enjoys off-roading and playing with their 3 dogs. I recently met one of the dogs, and it's the cutest dog I've ever seen. Just wanted to put that out there. And then we have Jaime Tovar over here. He was also hired July 24th in the same position, construction worker 1, and that was vacant due to a resignation right around the same time. Prior to joining the district, Jaime worked as a utility worker for Livenhain Water District, and in his free time, he enjoys playing video games, fishing, and hiking. These are our new employees.
Any questions?
Can you
What-
play video games and fish and hike at the same time?
No. Maybe 2 of them.
I have one observation. I'm glad to see that facial hair is coming back in the younger generation. Well, thank you very much. Welcome aboard, and we're very glad to have you. Thank you. Okay, now to the real fun time, presentations. And Chris Robbins, we're going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, President Martin. I've been coming here for the past 5 years bringing you students from our annual poster contest. This is where we send out packages to all of our 4th grade schools in the service area and request students to provide art for us as part of North County Water Agencies, and we produce a calendar every year. This year we had a lot of fun. We had over 90 entries. Staff screened those down into a more reasonable amount. We put them over in the training room and asked staff actually to come in and vote for their favorites. So we've got 2 of the students here. I actually had an additional one I'm going to share. This one is Skylar Groke. Beautiful artwork. Diane, can you? Oh, it's coming up. This is a really nice piece of artwork. And it came in as a package from one of the teachers, but I didn't notice it at first, but unfortunately the student wasn't in our service area. So the school was in our service area, but the student wasn't. So I reached out to Carlsbad Municipal and said, hey, can I send you this one over and get him put into yours? And they said, we already picked our winner. So he's our honorable mention. Skylar, he couldn't make a little bit of traffic and a little bit of practice tonight. 3rd place winner is Leah Vanderjack. Unfortunately, Leah is in Lake Tahoe, and you know that's what you do in July if you're a lucky kid. So we'll get Leah her gift certificate. Next up, I'd like to introduce our 2nd place winner, Sophia Dowd. Sophia, can you come on up? Nice artwork. Amazon gift certificate, and then you take a seat right there, and we will get a picture with all the board once we do our 1st place winner. Our 1st place winner, Sierra Whiteside, can you come on up? So Sierra is our 1st place winner. 1st place gift certificate, Amazon gift card. 1st place certificate, and then we had a little fun on social media. We had a viewer's choice, and I guess the employees picked well because you were also the viewer's choice on social media as well.
Wow, all right.
We will produce calendars with the artwork. They will come out about the end of December, and the students can get copies to give to their friends and family as gifts during the holidays. But right now I'd like to get a picture.
I have a quick question. Could you just go back to the honorable mention? for a
Yeah.
second? And what was the young man's name?
Skylar Groke.
Had Skylar met our general manager before he did this? Okay. Let's go down and take a picture.
Oh, boy.
shots, you gotta take one.
Excellent artwork, ladies. Excellent.
Yeah, parents want to get pictures too, absolutely.
Good job.
Yeah, okay. And a little, awesome, awesome. Don't forget that, that's real money right there.
Yeah, man.
He'll take the ladder down in a
Yeah.
second. He'll take the ladder down.
And then if you'll indulge me, Mr. Robbins always has a backup plan.
Back up.
Any parents want to get any class?
Wait,
Don?
we got one gentleman here who wants to take a photo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, go
Want to
ahead.
stand up on the, safety will probably let me get away with it. You're so welcome. Okay, thank you so much. You are welcome to stay for the remainder of our board meeting. It's very exciting,
Oh, yeah.
but you're also welcome here.
Thank
The
Go
base.
out and have a nice dinner with mom and dad. Thank you. You're so welcome.
Sorry about that crap that I had there.
Oh, yeah.
You'll give me back. I know, you'll give me back. You'll give me back.
Payback.
Payback is terrible.
A mofo.
All right, moving along. The consent calendar, all items will be approved as one motion. Need a motion?
Move.
Moved, need a second?
Second.
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Aye. Okay, now we do have a public hearing tonight. This is the time and place for a hearing to consider adoption of resolution of the Vallecitos Water District approving the sewer service fees to be collected on the tax roll for Improvement District A for the fiscal year July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. And if you remember, we do this every year. General Manager Prune, will you please provide us with the details?
Yeah, this item is simply to discuss the manner in which we'll collect sewer service fees for customers that are not also water customers of the district, and Wes Owen is actually going to provide a brief overview.
So, as General Manager Pruitt mentioned, this is an annual item, and this is actually just a continuation of the June 19th meeting where the board approved Resolution 1554 to have the IDA fees collected on the tax roll. As I mentioned, it's just a continuation of that, and this just approves the collection so that we can send the information over to the county and have those fees collected on the tax roll. And it serves as the required public hearing for that, which was, yeah.
Does any member of the Board of Directors have any questions for staff? Director Evans.
We're gonna have to work this.
You're not on here, but I saw you pushing.
Huh?
Didn't show up here, but I saw you pushing.
I'm sorry.
Trying to get it.
This is how we've done it for years, isn't it? There's nothing new.
Great.
No surprises for anyone.
No surprise.
I'd like to move for approval.
Second. Oh, this
Okay,
is
hold on. Does any member of the board, does any member of the public have any questions that they would like to ask staff?
President Martin.
We
No.
need to formally open the public hearing. And then close it. And then close it when done, if there's no speakers.
Okay, we're gonna open the public hearing.
Yeah, did we miss
No public comment, so you can.
No public
move to
comment.
close the public hearing.
Okay, move to close the public
that?
hearing.
We'll add that.
Okay. There being no other persons wishing to address the board, the hearing is closed. Does any member of the board of directors have any further questions or discussion? No. Does any member of the board of directors wish to move adoption of the resolution?
So moved.
second.
Moved and seconded. All, roll call. Electronic.
Oh,
Start the vote, please. Thank you. See, all votes are in.
adopted, 4 yes and 1 absent. Thank you. Moving down to action items. Item number 3.1. General Manager?
Yeah, so I believe this is the change order request for schoolhouse tank?
Yes. Yes.
No,
It's
it's
the
the lease.
Okay. Yeah. there's a-
3.1?
There's a disconnect between the summary sheet and the board item. Okay, yeah, so this is a authorization to execute a lease agreement for our multifunction printer copiers, and I think Matthias will be addressing this item.
Okay. Let me ask one question though. I have a request to speak on item 3.3. Is this the item that you mean? Only because we have mine shows a 3.1, but you're saying there's a mistake?
Yeah, it looks-
3.3.
yeah, it looks like there's a disconnect between the sheet that you and I discussed on Monday and
Okay.
the printed board.
Oh, okay. So go with Matisse, thank you. Authorization to execute the lease, Matisse.
Good.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board. I'm here this evening to discuss and request authorization to execute a lease agreement by and between the district and AIS for 13 Xerox multifunction printers and 21 standalone printers. Over the past several months, IT has embarked on a district-wide analysis of the district's printer fleet, including the number of copies made and the types of jobs performed on each of the existing machines. These and other considerations were taken into account to assess the current organizational print needs throughout the district and create qualifications. IT issued an RFP, request for proposal, on May 1st, 2019 that included replacement of the entire fleet and the addition of 3 HP devices which were not under a current maintenance contract. Staff is recommending AIS as the highest qualified vendor, as they provided the most cost competitive and cost-conscious solution, which we estimate could save the district upwards to $150,000 over the course of a 60-year term, or 60-month term rather. Proposed support and maintenance, as well as the provision of consumables such as toner and maintenance kits, are included in the cost projections. So that concludes my brief overview of the Xerox
Any question of
agreement.
staff?
What was the ultimate price for the service?
The ultimate price over a 60-month term was $114,404.18 in lease costs, and the operating costs are $33,000. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I apologize. The proposed cost, 120. I was looking at the savings. My apologies. So the proposed lease cost, $127,042.42, and the operating costs for 5 years are $5,878.44. So the lease costs are the costs that we incur for the equipment itself, and the operating costs are what the printers or any of these Xerox refer to as click charges. So when someone prints a letter or anything that requires more than one page, for example, 5 pages, they charge us a certain fraction of a penny for each one of those pages that we print. So.
All right, thank you.
George Evans?
My button doesn't seem to be working.
That's okay. I'll
Okay.
look over there.
Thank you. These are kind of simple questions, but I'm curious, when you say we have a printer fleet, I've never considered that. So I was wondering how many printers we have, how many copies, and I'm not sure for sure what an HP device is, so we're getting 3 more of them.
Sure, no
I thought it
problem.
was horse-powered, but I don't think
Hewlett Packard, you're close. There's some horsepower built into them, I guess.
Okay,
so
cool.
You're partially right. So to give a brief overview of the amount of printers, to give you an idea, we have in this building, we have 8 printers. One would be upstairs without getting into the minutia, one upstairs, a few at the ends of the building, one in the mailroom, for example, the other where the bills are printed from customer service. We also have 4 in the O&M building for construction, collections, operations, and we have 1 at our MRF facility. I believe the other question you had asked is, could you
How many
repeat the-
copies?
How many copies? So I would have to do the math. I have a long drawn-out spreadsheet it's essentially how this works is it's 0.044 cents per copy. You multiply that by the total amount of copies, and that is the projection of the operating cost. So I didn't bring my long detailed spreadsheet. I could definitely provide that breakdown to you if you'd like to see.
I'd be curious at
Okay.
some point, but it's not essential.
Sure.
And then what exactly are the HP devices?
So we had, at the beginning of the current contract, we had a total of 18 standalone devices. So when I say standalone, we have copiers that are in general areas like the mailroom, and we have others that we classify as standalone, and those would be, for example, in the HR or the administrative service manager's office, for example, where you have confidential documents that are constantly being printed out, and that would warrant someone to have their a printer, a dedicated printer at their office. So the HP printers that I'm referring to were 3 printers that were added after the initial contract was signed, and those were not under the current maintenance contract. The maintenance contract covers the toners, the staples, the repairs, those kinds of things.
So what does HP mean?
Hewlett Packard.
Yeah,
Oh,
Hewlett-Packard. It's a company.
Hewlett Packard, yeah. The company, it's the brand.
And finally, I have one other, if you don't mind, is, do we have a combination of color printers and just black and white printers? And are they all like inkjet? Are there a variety of types?
So we have LaserJet printers. We have a combination of color and black and white or monochrome. So it just depends on the departmental needs. The monochrome ones or the black and white ones are typically cheaper. So the lease cost on those is going to be quite a bit cheaper than the color, but it just depends on the need. For example, in construction, they don't really print a lot of color, so it doesn't warrant them having a color printer. So that's kind of where we're able to save costs. And thank you to James, it seems like he did the math for me. In terms of printouts, it's 131,818 printouts roughly.
Wow.
Okay, so that is the
Thank you.
total.
And,
You're welcome.
and we've been with AIS for a while, haven't we?
We've been through Xerox. We're currently under contract with Xerox Direct.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Geez, I have a couple of questions. How many total printers do we have right now in our fleet?
In our fleet, the total amount of printers is 34. So we have
So that really.
13 and 21. 13 multifunctions, right, are the ones that are in the general areas, and 21 standalones are ones that are in offices or other locations. Or SCADA, where they can't really be in a general area.
Okay. And my question is, that makes 1 printer for every 3 employees. And actually, if you break down the employees that work in the field, it's 1 printer for every 2 employees. Does that seem excessive?
Well, I mean, I think, I don't think so. I think it depends, that's a question, it depends on who you ask. But ultimately, the ones that were created, or the ones that are standalone, I don't think it's excessive by any means in terms of the larger multifunction printers, because we've scattered those throughout opposite sides of the building, for example, areas that have high volume printing. So the 13 that we currently have that are the larger ones that have the copier trays and the finishers are the big ones that aren't in offices, which we have 13 of those. Those are not only for this facility, but they're for B building as well and MRF. So in terms of the quantity that we have of those, I would say no. There have been needs for the smaller printers. So To handle that question in two parts, the larger printers, of which 13 I'd say no, I think that's fairly reasonable. The other part of that question would be the remaining balance of 21 additional printers. So there are several initiatives that we actually have. We currently have 18 of those. There are several initiatives that we will embark on this fiscal year that involve going paperless with some of our invoicing processing. And so in order to do that, ideally a staff member would have to scan from their desk as opposed to scanning from the mailroom, coming back to their desk, scanning from the mailroom, coming back to their desk. And so in order to maximize productivity, it's difficult striking that balance between overall efficiency to the organization, that efficiency that you earn by not having someone walk around to do job functions. So it's subjective. I'd say that's a great question. I would also say that that's a very difficult question to ask. What I can answer confidently is that each one of the individual printers are either on the industrial control systems network, which has to be, there are guidelines that warrant those devices to be separate from the business network and in specific areas that are not accessible by the general staff. So that actually is a good portion of those printers that are not even in this building. The others would be, for example, the HR area. We have finance department, several of those where they're doing invoicing, routing, and workflows associated, which would warrant a printer. So on those, you might not see excessive click charges because they might not be printing, but you will see a lot of copies being made on those in terms of scanning. And so with that scanning, you ideally want that to be under service contract so that when those things break, you know someone's going to be out in a 4-hour period, which would be our potential contract if the board is to adopt those to make sure that we don't lose productivity and impact the organization.
Thank you for a very concise and thorough answer. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
And I would like to say thank you again because using ASI is saving us $150,000 a year. Great job.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
That's what I was going to say. I was hoping in the discussion and the analysis, that wasn't lost on the board, that we're saving $150,000 compared to our current contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great job.
Thank you.
Director?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo that. I'd like to commend staff for finding these savings, and I would move approval of staff's recommendation.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Indeed, job well done.
Thank you.
Okay, item 3.2, change order request for schoolhouse tank refurbishment. Well, you're here.
On command. When needed. So all that savings that Matthias got,
Yeah.
Easy come, easy go.
easy come, easy go. For some reason I can't call that up.
It's open right here, it's already,
Oh. For some reason it doesn't come up on my screen.
drag it over.
Can I drag it over from your screen?
Yeah, just grab it. Oh, no, this screen's up. Never mind.
It was on there.
Put it back.
There we go.
I'll talk with Matthias later. Good evening, President Martin and directors. I'm here to talk about the change order request for the schoolhouse tank refurbishment project. So as you may recall, the schoolhouse tank there in the photo is located in San Leal Hills. It's in the West Cliff neighborhood. It was built in 2001. It's a 2.4 million gallon tank. In 2015, we did do a dive inspection, did determine that it needed to be refurbished. We put this in the budget for last fiscal year, and we began working on this project to refurbish the tank. The refurbishment includes the removal and replacement of the interior coating. There's also some structural improvements that we had planned to make, as well as upgrading the safety equipment and replacing the anti-corrosion system that it currently has. So you may recall in April, we did bring this to the board for the construction award for West Coast industrial linings for $535,000. And then we began working on that the very next month, May, draining the tank and beginning the work. I just wanted to point out logistically, when you take this tank down, this tank supplies water to the 1115 pressure zone. So when you take that tank out of service, we worked with the ops staff to provide water from the double peak tank, which is a higher elevation. We bring that water down through a couple of bypass pressure reducing valves to supply that system. So that's happening now currently while we're working on that tank. So I just want to point that out. So we began working on that tank, and one of the first things they do after they drain the tank is they start welding the lateral bracing to the rafters. And when they did that, they started welding holes through the rafters. The metal was so thin. So we then initiated a change order to do what's called a blast inspection, and they go in there with a high power, basically sandblast it, and take the coatings off and get down to the true good metal. And after that was done, we then brought Harper and Associates in. They're our experts on this, and they evaluated the tank and determined what repairs needed to be made. So out of the 84 rafters that tank has, they did provide an evaluation. That's there on your board packet, page 101. And I'll just really quickly, out of the 84 rafters, 19 of them were deteriorated, need to be replaced. 33 of them have severe metal loss. Actually, you can see that there in the photo. It's a little difficult to understand what you're looking at, but this is a rafter beam that's been sandblasted, and this black space here, that's actually looking right through that I-beam. That is a perforation, if you will, right through the beam. So for those 33 beams, they're actually going to be reinforced on both sides with some plating. We have another 21 rafters that they're thinning but no holes like you see there. They're going to get one plate to reinforce it, understanding that when they weld that, if they discover more deterioration based on the welding process, they'll probably have to add an additional plate. That'll probably be additional cost to what we're seeing here, because at this point it's still just an unknown. We also have 46 rafters where they're connecting to the girders. Those connections have eaten away. They'll need to be replaced. We've got 8 rafters where those connections have holes in them. They will be double plated to be reinforced. And then we have 2 rafters that have some deterioration on the end. They will be cut off, and about 6 foot of those rafters will be replaced entirely. So the level of deterioration that we determined from the blast inspection was not known during design. And I know the obvious question is why. And that is because the evaluation that we do is basically it's a visual inspection to evaluate delamination and corrosion, but you really can't get down to the bare metal until you do a blast inspection. So once you do that, then you clearly see that the repairs need to be made. So once we saw the extent of that, we got our evaluation for Harper, we went to the contractor, asked for a change order for what that cost was going to be. It's over 30% of the total construction contract that we have with the contractor. Per the district ordinance, we need to bring it to you. Anything over 10% needs board approval. However, because of the need to keep this project on schedule, we did talk to our water operations staff. We did work with the general manager, let them know, and we did proceed and gave direction for that contractor to move forward. And we hope for that work to begin probably another week and a half. Actually, the material's been ordered and that material's being fabricated. So the reason we decided to move forward with that is because, as you can imagine, waiting to do these repairs at a later date is going to incur more costs for the district. Also, any delay of the schedule, there's going to be cost from the contractor if he's just sitting and waiting. And as you can imagine, with the system being, that pressure zone being supplied by the double peak tank, to ensure the reliability to our customers, we want this project completed as soon as possible so we get that tank back in service. So for those reasons, we decided to move forward. Impact to the project is there in your board pack. Back at the fiscal impact, we have a budget of $782,000. We've got that price from West Coast. We do estimate a 10% change order just as just a budgeting line item. Design and staff costs there have not changed from the time that we brought this to award. Those numbers will change a little bit, but we really won't be able to evaluate that till we get to the end. So what you can see on there is that change order 1 and 3. That's the blast inspection that was already performed. That's $20,941 change. And then that change order 2, which is the structural repairs that they've ordered the material they're getting ready to do, that's at $160,000, 5 and change. So it is over budget. We have a budget shortfall of $180,000 and change. We're not asking for a budget adjustment at this time. Like I said, we're still working on the project. We'll come back later for acceptance. The board will have another chance to evaluate the job and any additional funds that we need, which clearly we're going to need additional funds, those will be paid out of our water replacement reserves. So this change order, these 3 change orders do amount to 34% of the construction contract. Again, per that ordinance, we will need board approval, and any change orders moving forward, whether it's a $500 change order, $1,000, we will have to bring that forward back to the board because we've exceeded that 10%. So just wanted to make you aware of that. So with that, staff would ask the board to approve this construction change order to West Coast Industrial Linings in the amount of $180,946.75, and I can answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from Director Hernandez?
Yes, is this a unique situation? I mean, we have tanks all over the place.
We do, and over the years, we've actually deferred a lot of these tank refurbishment projects for budget reasons. This was evaluated in 2015. We deferred it in the 2016 year and put it on the following year for various budget reasons. It's definitely wasn't expected, as you can imagine. We're working on a tank refurbishment project right now. It's North Twin Oaks tank number 1. And based on the dive inspection and the evaluation, the dive inspection is done by one company, and then our designer will then go in and do another evaluation. And based on that, they can see extensive corrosion. So for that particular project, we will have a bid item for blast inspection. We will have a contingency for rafter repairs. In this case, they just didn't see it. And we kind of go on the recommendations of those expertise on how we want to proceed.
So in fact, the coating hid the deterioration? Is that what I'm kind of seeing the photos?
Yeah, well, you'll see that delamination, you'll see it kind of peeling
Mm-hmm.
off, and then you'll see that corrosion kind of behind it, but they're not grabbing it and scraping it or, doing anything, because that's going to contaminate water quality. They can't really get into that extensive
Is there a different coating that could be used to protect that steel so that the chances of the corrosion being minimized or eliminated?
Yeah, actually, so in the past, you couldn't use certain things because the coatings have to meet drinking water standards. More recently, and this has been done in the last couple tank jobs, above the water line, we use a special primer that's more resistant. The reason why the rafters, it's in the vapor barrier layer, so it's humid and it's exposed to air, and that's why the corrosion occurs in such rapid fashion. So below the water line, it's usually not nearly as bad, but now we're using a different primer that is only allowed above the water line, so it's above the overflow mark. So this way it can't, even though it's just primer, it's underneath the paint, that is more resistant to that type of environment. So we're hoping, and based on the studies, and we've gone to conferences and read papers on it, and our experts are actually recommending this coating for the primer, that this will prevent future corrosion of this kind. We'll still see delamination in paint, but we won't be losing nearly the amount of metal.
Thank you.
Other questions? I've got one. Is there a difference between the waters that we receive? We get Levenheim water, which may be slightly different than what we get from Metropolitan, which I know we put those in tanks. And I'm assuming some of our desal goes in tanks as well, but I don't know that. Is there a difference do we understand, or are we looking for a difference to be occurring in tanks because of the different acidity or whatever it is in the water?
There actually is a difference, and actually Ed knows those differences better than I do. However, all the water quality standards that every water source is met, make sure that it's on the I forgot what the index is called, and Ed, I'm sure you can help me.
Langmuir.
Thank you, Langmuir index. So it's on the good side. So in other words,
Which index?
Langmuir.
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 Thank you,
index.
another word.
So with that, it ensures that it's not corrosive to our tanks and pipes and our appurtenances. So
So this is normal wear and tear on this tank, is what you're saying?
So this is a little bit beyond normal wear and tear. It could have been partially from the original application when it was built. The coating system wasn't put on perfectly. That and the fact that there was some deferred maintenance on it, and now we're basically, the new coating systems are supposed to help prevent this from happening. When this tank was built, when San Leo was built, all the rules for drinking water standards, and you couldn't, it's basically zero volatile organic compounds, zero VOCs in the tank, so the coating systems in the tanks don't last nearly the way they used to. And now they find the industry is caught up, and now there's some better coating systems, although they're much more expensive, that will now hopefully last a test of time. But we really won't know how long they last until they've been tested in our environment for, decades.
Is there, when these things are built, and I'm just knowing, because at EWA, we just went through a process of putting in new facilities, and putting the coatings on were very important, and they were very well inspected by a multitude of people. Do we have anyone, when we build a tank, that is in our domain, that works for us, that is able to inspect it? Or we always just look at the contractors to say, well, did they do it?
No, we actually hire outside services. In this case, usually it's a company like Harper and Associates, which is on our as needed, and they're coating experts, and they help write the specs. So the contractor knows that we're going to do pull tests. They're basically on the coating and adhesion to the metal. Pull tests, we do different other application tests to make sure the proper thickness is being put on. You can't test every inch of it.
Right.
But however, that wasn't done with a majority of the developer-built tanks back in the day. It's done now in developer-built tanks, but it wasn't done previously where we had that third-party inspector working on that to that extent. So our current specs and our current standards have that, but these tanks were done before that.
Excellent, thank you. And excellent route that you took by continuing the process and not waiting for it to come to here, because it has to be done. It's not a question of should we or shouldn't we, it's how quickly can we get it done, I guess. So with that,
Move to approve.
a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Okay, item 3.3, change of request for sewer bypass repair.
That's Jason as well.
Oh,
I get all the fun stuff. Okay, well, thank you once again. This item is a change order request for the sewer bypass repair project. So I put up a graphic here that you can kind of have an idea of the background of what the bypass line is. So you can see it there, extending from Rancho Santa Fe Road all the way to Melrose Drive. This line was installed in 1969. It's composed of what's called techite material, which is no longer manufactured. It's a fiberglass material. I'd say, Ed, it's not the best material out there, is it? There you go.
So, is it like ductile?
What's that?
Is it like the ductile that we use?
It's much worse.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is about the worst of the worst. So this line, it connects to our sewer land outfall, as you can see, which is under pressure in Melrose Drive. So this bypass line is under pressure under the lower portion of the line, and then it's under gravity under the upper reaches. So, and this line, as you can see by the graphic, what we do is this line is used to divert flows away from Meadowlark, and that's done for operational shutdowns at the plant or in the event of any sort of emergency situations, heavy rain flows, heavy rain events, those kind of things. So the history of that little background is in February of 2017, and I put a little dot where this occurred. We had a spill near Korea Way in Carlsbad. There was a crack under the pipe. It was under pressure during a heavy rain event. It was in February. And that line broke, had a spill. We hired an independent contractor under an emergency contract, made the repair for $65,000. A year later, January 2018, we had another leak develop. That was up off of Brighton Glen, up in what we would call kind of a gravity portion of that line. Because it was in the upper reaches of the pipeline, there wasn't a need to replace it, make that repair under an emergency situation. We were able to isolate the line. We created a budget item for that, and then in the following year, fiscal year, we then began working on a bid package, took that out to bid. In January of this year, we received 7 competitive bids. The lowest bid was $36,000. That was from Shaw Equipment. rentals. Because it was under $50,000, we took that to the general manager to approve that PO, and we began working on that repair, that one off of Brighton Glen. That repair was actually completed just last month. All the restoration is done. That project, that repair is completed. However, about 4 or 5 weeks after we received those bids for that repair, we did, as you know, it was a very wet winter. We had a heavy rain event, and once again, the land outfall surged and broke the line again, about 100 feet away from the 2017 repair, and we have another break now off of Korea Way. So the decision was, we were able to isolate that line, but we went to our contractor, who we have under contract, who's doing a very similar repair in the vicinity, and said, give us a price, a change order price to make that repair. The advantages of going that route is, one, we can get that bypass line back in function. It's an essential pipeline for the operation of the plant, as I mentioned, for shutdowns and emergency situations. We actually have some operational projects scheduled for this winter coming up at Meadowlark, and it will require use of that bypass line. So to delay this repair, budget it, and do it next year, it would delay, have a ripple effect on those projects as well. Also, the obvious reason is its cost savings to the district. It's an opportunity to take advantage of the fact that we have a contractor there doing the repair, to not spend staff time and effort putting out a whole nother big package, waiting another year. So, and as we know, costs continue to increase in the construction field. So we did get a price from our contractor of $41,700. As I've mentioned in the last project, because of our ordinance 146, anything over 10%, we do need to come to the board approval, and we would need your approval tonight to move forward with this change order. We do have a budget of $180,000. If you look at the fiscal impact, we have that price from Shaw for the repair that he's already done for $36,000. We did have a small credit on that particular repair. We've got some design and staff time figured in, and with that change order proposal from him, $41,700, we're still under budget by about $46,900. So again, not asking for a budget adjustment, and if by some circumstance it were to increase, any increase would be paid out of our sewer replacement reserves. Again, because this change order is over that 10%, any change orders or items we would still have to bring it back to the board. And of course, we would bring this item back to the board again when we accept the job and evaluate those numbers. So, and I don't have it here, but I just wanted to mention that obviously you can see 3 breaks on this line. The next obvious question is, what are we going to do to make sure this doesn't happen again? So I can tell you that in the current budget, we have a line item in our future projects to actually evaluate and rehabilitate this entire line. It's about a $1.7 million project. The idea is to begin, I believe, next fiscal year working on that rehabilitation project. But I can tell you we're taking advantage of the repair from 2018, and if we move forward with this change order to make this repair, when we cut that line open to fix the pipe, we actually run a camera both ways to kind of evaluate, do kind of a condition assessment of the pipeline. Are there any other breaks? And just kind of, it's going to help us on that next rehab project, where the access point's going to be, what are we dealing with? So we're kind of taking advantage of these breaks to help us on that next bigger project. So with that, staff does ask the board to approve the construction change orders to Shaw Equipment Rentals in the amount of $41,700, and I can answer any questions you have.
Any questions, Jim?
Just a comment. I'm familiar with the Shaw Company, the excellent company, and I know they've done work here at the district over the years, so no question, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. Director Littlethorpe?
Yeah, does it have the cement mortar lining on the interior?
No, it does not.
It's called plastic mortar, reinforced plastic mortar pipe?
Yeah, I believe it's a mortar exterior.
Is it cement coating on the outside?
Yeah, it's that.
I would say it's cement.
It's basically that thin plastic that you see on Tech Eye with the fiberglass wrap with like a coating, a little bit of coating on that. It's not what you and I would consider mortar, but I think they called it mortar at the time.
I've never understood
It could be-
that nomenclature.
It could be
that they
Elmer's
use.
glue for all I know.
I
Yeah,
think it's the hot,
Paste.
I think it's that hot cement.
It is like a paste, yeah.
We have some out in the yard, if you want to look at it.
Any other questions? We have a speaker? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna move staff approval, but
Okay, we do have a speaker. Mr. Hunsaker?
Mike Hunsaker, 115 Equestrian Court again. What's the lifetime of this pipe? I understand it's about 48 years old, so, and this is a inferior material that the manufacturer's been sued upon in many cases. What sort of pressure is this? And from an engineering standpoint, I'm finding it a little difficult to understand how its proximity to the pressurized section of the land outfall will cause stress on this pipe. Usually these are separated, and it's a little difficult to transmit stress through soil. This mentions its purpose is to divert water away from Meadowlark. In 2018, we had a break, and we said they were only using this line for water coming out of Meadowlark that had been already processed. And yet this is really a diversion away from the pipe. The other question I have is the 16-inch, does this mean that we have an overflow from our primary sewer lines to Ewa that's going on? And if we get fines or spills, how are we going to pay for this? Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if I remember all the questions, but I'll make an
I've got them
attempt.
down here, first 1 through 4.
So,
And 5
let's,
was an observation.
got it. So first off, this is a bypass line. So basically the pressure in this line, the Rancho Santa Fe Road is significantly higher than the bottom of Melrose. So it goes in gravity, and then as it goes down the hill, it actually ties directly into the land outfall. And the land outfall is a siphon. So the siphon's under pressure. So since the pipes are physically connected, the internal pressure of the siphon is translated, just like anything else, pressure into the pipe. So when the siphon is full, the bypass sees the same pressure as the siphon. Obviously, as the bypass goes uphill, it sees less pressure because it's at a higher elevation, just like the siphon would. So it's not a translation of pressure through soil. They're actually physically connected. Let's see, the pipe that we talked about that transmits sewer directly is actually a fail-safe line. So Meadowlark has the ability to send secondary effluent directly to Encina's ocean outfall. And that's a completely separate line. This is a raw sewer line to bypass raw sewer away from Meadowlark and into the land outfall, which is a raw sewer line that goes to the headworks at Encina. Let's see, what other questions were there?
Lifespan?
Oh, yeah, so it's beyond its basic life expectancy, and that's, as Engineer Hubbard mentioned, that's why we have a capital project scheduled to basically do a structural slip lining, most likely, of the whole pipe. So essentially, we're going to replace the whole pipe. We're going to evaluate the cost benefit of whether we replace it with a dig and lay, with a brand new pipe, or do a lining project and figure out which one is the most cost-effective alternative to the district. And I think there was one more.
When was this pipe put in? What year?
1969.
69. So it's lifespan 69, so far to 19.
Mhm.
But we're looking at doing something about it
Yep.
in the near future.
And that's why it's in the budget, and once we do a condition assessment, basically put video camera, we'll understand if there's still useful life left, so this way we don't destroy an asset that's still valuable and useful, or if we need to accelerate that project and get it done, because it's basically crumbling, so.
I think you answered all the questions. Okay. Looking for a motion?
I'd move staff's recommendation.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. Great presentation, and thank you for all your years of service.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so before Jason walks away, this will be his last presentation in front of the Vallecitos board. He has accepted a position at another surrounding or adjacent agency, and we're going to miss him. It's a huge loss for Vallecitos, big gain for a living name. So thank you for everything.
Yeah, we'll get even with Kim for that.
I will leave that up to you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, 3.4, Southern California Water Coalition Quarterly Luncheon.
Yeah, so this, the agency that President Martin just mentioned is hosting a program this coming Friday. It will be at the Carlsbad Faraday Center. Our Ordinance 210 provides a list of agencies for which it's pre-approved for director compensation and per diem. This organization is not on that list. So the ordinance says that if you want to get, if any of the directors want to get reimbursement for per diem and expenses, they have to get pre-approval. So that's why it's on the agenda today. Just to let the board know that any members who had expressed interest in attending, we've already registered you. You're paid to go, but this is just a question about expenses and per diem reimbursement.
Do you have an address?
Yes, it's 1635 Faraday Avenue.
It's where the old
I used to work
San
in
Diego
that
North
building,
County
so
EDC meetings were held.
Oh,
Well, I'm
the health
asking
building?
that. I don't know that.
I don't know.
Oh, no, that's not
No.
in Faraday. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's on Faraday's
the other.
Avenue in
yeah.
Carlsbad.
1635 Faraday.
1635.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion?
I'd move approval.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. All right, moving on to General Manager's Report.
Just a few items. First one, just a reminder that next Tuesday, July 23rd, is the Employee Appreciation Event. So the board members are invited and encouraged to attend. The lunch will start at 11:30, and immediately after the lunch, we'll have the ceremony itself. That'll be right in this facility here. A little heads up that the district crews will be performing some valve maintenance work tonight. It's tonight, right? And they'll be along Twin Oaks Valley Road, Mission Boulevard, and El Norte Parkway. These are heavily traveled roads, and the city doesn't want us to do that type of work during the traffic hours, so it's going to be night work for us. So just a heads up, and we've coordinated with the city on those. And next week, we'll be doing some similar work, a bit different of nature, but it'll be night work in San Marcos Boulevard adjacent to San Marcos Elementary School. Is that next Wednesday or next Wednesday? So just a heads up for the board. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, District Legal Counsel.
Just one item. Today, DWR released the California Water Plan Update 2018. It's for those of you that are interested in that. It provides recommended actions, et cetera, for the coming years to coordinate with Newsom's plan. The DWR will be hosting a webinar on the 29th of July, to provide an overview of the plan. And you can find information on the DWR website about the water plan for specifics. That's everything.
Thank you. San Diego County Water Authority, Director Evans.
Thank you. I have a few. If I go back to the last meeting in June, since I haven't spoken to you about it, I'll just give you a brief rundown, and if you want details on the answers, you're going to have to rely on staff. We did pass the budget, and the total was $1.6 billion and a little extra. The untreated water went up 4.8%, and the treated went up 4.3. And the district is, the authority is drawing significant amounts of money from the rate stabilization funds, which will be up for 3 years to keep the rates down. And there's been a lot of questions about that, and so they have put back together their fiscal sustainability task force to work on. That's about 7 people, and it's going to include GMs, board members, and staff to work on it. They've done this before. Yes, sir?
I have a quick question. The untreated water only affects us because of the water we get from Levenheim? So their rate to us goes up because their rate to them went up? Correct. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and that task force is just being formed, so I don't know exactly who's on it. I know a few people, but I don't know, so I can't tell you. They also stated that part of the increases were from the CalPERS employer contributions raised. Utility costs have gone up significantly, and they have a higher share of the cost for operating San Vicente and Lake Hodges and the treatment plants. And that's partly where we've taken over some of the responsibilities, like Lake Hodges, we now have an in-house system. Yes, sir?
So question, do you know how they're gonna handle their CalPERS?
How are they gonna handle the CalPERS? Yes, I could tell you, but I think that would be a longer discussion tonight.
Oh, okay.
But I can get it back to you. I'll be happy to.
Yeah.
Like I said, this was from June 27th, and so in my head, I'd have to pull up my papers. Do you have a memory of it? I don't think it's, nothing as good as that we're doing.
No, I was just interested, I know how EWA was doing, I wonder how they were doing it.
They're not as aggressive as Vallecitos or EWA, but they are paying more than the minimum requirement.
Oh,
Thank you. And let me see. They also made a point to brag about the fact that we just have completed a first phase of a drone pilot study, and they have 2 FAA certified drone pilots, which I didn't know, but that's a pretty big deal to have. And they were very useful for them in their right-of-way and such. So they said last year they resolved 6 long-term encroachments, 75 new ones, and removed 115 trees from the Aqueduct right-of-way. And a lot of that they were able to establish quicker, the drones. So I thought that was very interesting. So that was the quickest I could think on the last meeting. The next meeting is actually next Thursday. I did want to tell you I spent yesterday morning at a legislative roundtable at the Water Authority with Brian Jones, and I don't know how many of you know Brian Jones, but his district, the 38th, is one of the biggest districts, and he has almost all of the important water resources are in his district, like San Vicente and Padre Dam, and so he's very essential part for us and a critical, I guess, worker is the word in Sacramento for us. He was very well attended, and he was very aware and up on the water issues. He feels that our county has certainly excelled in diversifying and flexibility, but is most troubled because a lot of regions only rely on one source, and they just don't get how San Diego's got several. Some are just pure groundwater or one lake or one. So he says there's still a north-south conflict going on, but it's more a perception error than an actual conflict, which I thought was encouraging. Just a process of educating people and letting people think a little bit bigger than their own local, even though local is most important. And he felt that we were very well supported with the Senate President Pro Tem, Tony Atkins, and we have Waldron up there, and he's on the caucus, she's on the minority, so he felt San Diego's in a wonderful place to do great things. So it's a great time for Aqua and other organizations and the Water Authority to try to push the bills. That was very encouraging. He also said that the hardest problem is most people come at every solution as a, what do you call that? A zero-sum answer. Most people just take care of me and I don't care. And I said there's some work going on, but he was very proud to say that he felt California was, as Sacramento is incredibly bipartisan in most of its decisions. We're very lucky for that. And then he had a really interesting comment about the media and the news, and he said, don't listen to the federal news. He said, just think local and regional and state. Because, and he pointed out an interesting thing, he said the feds will do maybe 1 to 4 bills a year, and most of them don't really impact us. But he said, your legislators do an average of over 700 bills every single year. And you make a big difference if you get involved. So I hope as a district we are definitely involved and willing to get involved more. And in that respect, I thought it would be nice to send a thank you to Tony Atkins on the bill, the water tax bill.
Oh, yeah.
Because she did most of the fighting and getting the bipartisans to come together to take the water tax away. So I think it would just be nice if our district, but just personally, thanked her as well. I'm sure she's gotten many kudos. Okay, I think that was it. And on him, he says he's more than happy to talk to you. And then Glenn Farrell had out his what's hot, and mostly it was, of course, about the water bill and that it was a bipartisan. I'm trying to think what the number of it is. Do you know? SB 200? Is that the safe water bill? Safe drinking water at no cost?
I don't remember the number.
Okay, I'm thinking it is. They did some interesting things on how they were putting it together, but the biggest part of it is they have left a gap where there's uncertainty about how the future fund will be filled. They've said at 130 million, but nobody's really addressed if the 130 doesn't come from the three sources, which is cap and trade, a general fund backstop, and a statutory framework for this program that's supposed to be funded by the State Water Control Board, Resource Control Board. So they have a little group started called, and if you're interested in looking at this, has to do actually at, what do they want to say here? It actually has to do with another bill, but they're working on, getting confused here, on the wildlife prevention and response to that bill.
The welfare?
Yes, that's the one. That's 1054. That passed, and it passed as an emergency bill, but there is a coalition for fire protection accountability that's been formed because although it's emergent, it's put into effect, it hasn't addressed the issue of inverse condemnation or the responsibility of a water district. Like, for example, if a fire came and destroyed our pumps, we couldn't pump the water. Well, in Yorba Linda's case, the judge ruled against them and they were charged millions of dollars in damages, and it wasn't their fault at all. So they're working to figure out how to keep the utilities and the waters out of that. So some people, interesting, Brian Jones voted against this bill, even though it passed bipartisan, because he said some of the money is coming from a $2.54 tax that we've been paying on our water bills, and it's supposed to expire, and they've extended it for 15 years. But he said what they've done is they've taken that same money, which was for a water issue, and now they're applying it to an electrical issue because they're trying to save electrical utilities. He felt that was unfair. So it's very interesting to see where this will go. And I think that's the end of my report.
Your report, thank you. Moving to Encino Wastewater Authority, CI
Capital improvement, yes, we had our meeting this morning,
Oh,
and a number of things took place. The effluent conveyance project was completed. That was the one that we had to do the bypass, serious, and really got the Director, President Martin saw that going on. The cogeneration building structural repair, interestingly enough, I know we're looking here at the district about a condition assessment individual. Well, their condition assessment program, which just astounded me. Through the assessment, they saw this portion cracking on the building, so they picked it off to see, and when they picked it off, a whole chunk came off, and it just went on, and the rebar is gone, the beam is gone, and a 12-inch poured-in-place concrete wall. And so and to walk by it every day, cracking a wall, big deal. But they did the extra steps, and it costly, but it was particularly because we had the structural bracing up during this earthquake that apparently shook a little bit here. And so I think that's well worth us going after. Primary area improvement took place. The secondary clarifier, which was a mechanical replacement of like-kind services, that's going on. And the integrated service system, which is has to do with their SCADA. This company is going to coordinate, integrate 50 control modules throughout the agency, upgrade the windows, review the upgrades that Windows has, find out which ones are appropriate, and make those updates. And then they're on annual on-call 24 hours a day. So that was the report. Thank you.
Thank you. And I, on the other hand, attended the Policy and Finance Committee, and it was interesting because we asked about that wall that needs to be replaced, and I was like, well, how'd they build it incorrectly? Not that we can fix it, you know, but it, and they explained, which I thought was very interesting, that after the vents were put in, which you know there's gonna be a lot of perspiration from, the proper underpinning was put in, but then they added some electrical lines after on the outside of the building. And when they were adding those, they negated the drip pan, so it was dripping inside the wall. I went, well, at least you know how it happened. Can you go after that person? No, it was years ago, but it's like, you know, there again, inspection is a big key for them. I know they're very conscious of it, but after that was done, they should have, at least, hindsight's always 20/20. But it was very interesting, and we recommended, the biggest thing was move the budget to the full board. So we approved the budget to go to the full board, the next board meeting, which will be on the 24th. And that's all I have. Standing committees?
Policy.
We had a policy committee meeting, that's me, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to go over it?
Oh, I'll be happy to.
It was mostly your item.
Yeah. We had a policy committee meeting,
Earth-shaking.
and we're gonna bring to you, ladies and gentlemen, for your viewing pleasure,
Please,
some real opportunities.
I'm embarrassed.
One of which is for a vote by the board to eliminate the plastic containers in our district offices relative to the cup that Director Martin just showed off, as opposed to my little drinking cup right here, which is paper that I'm using. That's the one. And the other policy that we were looking at was the taking, depending upon the length of distance, rather than keep going back and forth to some of the conferences in San Diego, perhaps staying overnight in San Diego on some kind of a basis that we'll talk about and figure out what the reality should be so that it's not excessive, but driving back and forth 6 times with the environment, we think there's something we should look at again. And then the last one was, did we get through the credit card or did we just talk about it?
We just talked about it.
We just talked about it. We're going to continue talking about individual credit cards.
No, isn't that coming forward?
No, that one, I don't think that one needs to come forward to the whole board. I'll just send out some information to
Oh,
board
okay.
members.
Well, then
Okay.
we're going to be seeing information on credit cards so that perhaps we can gather the points for future use. And that was the policy committee.
Good report.
My gosh, I'm surprised.
Yeah,
I had to write this
I'm
other one
surprised
down
you had it
from
too,
this
'cause I
morning.
wouldn't have. And good thing we have our finance manager here, because he can go over what the finance meeting was about with Mike Sinella as chairman.
I don't even know if I remember when the last finance committee was.
Probably a good thing.
Okay, well, when Mr. Sinella comes back, we'll have him give that
Just the
report.
cost of service study update?
It was on June 17th.
There's 2 things, there's cost of service study, and I thought there was one other, was the
Yeah,
audit.
cost of service audit. Yes.
Oh, and the audit, okay. So it was the kickoff meeting for the auditors. But yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but Mike wasn't here.
Oh, were you sleeping through the meeting?
Only half of it.
So do you remember the date of the meeting?
I took your
The
place.
17th? So June 17th?
June 17th, yep.
So on June 17th, we had a kickoff meeting for the auditors. Shannon, can't remember her last name, the man, actually now partner with Davis and Farr, gave a short presentation on what procedures they'd be doing during the audit. Basically just to kick off the audit and update the committee with some of those details. We also discussed the status of the cost of service study, and that's just that it went out for bid, and we got 2 proposals, and we'd be reviewing those and bringing them back when we evaluated them.
Great, and I will say as one of the members of the committee is we were very impressed with the auditors, with some of the things that are coming up. And they said this year, it's not, next year will be a difficult year because there's a lot more gas fees that are going into effect.
Yes, we have several, and they stay busy. Her last name is Shannon Ayala.
Thank you.
Yes.
It slipped my mind. First and second. Okay, well, thank you very much. Okay, that takes care. Any other standing committees? No, directors' reports on meetings, conferences, and seminars. And let's start with Director Evans.
Well, I was at Kowoo yesterday morning, and I thought it was enjoyable. I really thought Pat Mulroy did a great job, and I appreciated her very blunt discussion regarding the situation with the Colorado River and the fact that the 7 states involved in that and Mexico are going to have some tough decision-making to do in the next few years. It's getting harder and harder. And of course, the northern states, for the first time, are finally wanting their water at a time when there's not a lot available. So I appreciated her bluntness, and I thought she was very optimistic in spite of the fact that she didn't make anything sound that easy. Yeah. And I also liked the comment there was about regarding the fact that Nevada is not allowed to recycle its water. I thought, there was a question about recycling and potable reuse, and she said in Nevada and most of the states, they're not allowed to do it. We're just lucky we're at the end of the river and can reuse it, because they need to use it and put it back in to send it down to us.
Okay. Well,
So we're using their recycled water.
but they do reuse it. I mean, it's reused.
Yes, but I
Coming to
mean,
us.
not the way we do it.
It's being delivered to us.
Yes. Hopefully we're not paying them extra for that. I don't know. It was very interesting, and I thought Mike might be here. I know he's on the new, the committee they put together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I'll just send a little note
It didn't
back.
sound like they had met yet.
No, they haven't met. A comment was made, and I know Mina spoke up about what kind of a group it was, and having been president 2 years ago, the bylaws were written way long ago, and we haven't followed them for a long time, but she made the comment, she said, we thought you were a breakfast club, and then you find out in the bylaws they were supposed to be collecting money and for scholarships and having these annual Christmas get-togethers, a whole different perspective. So I just wanted to make sure that when the committee gets together, I feel essentially that we first need to decide what kind of an organization and what's the purpose, and then 2, to define what is membership. Because when I first started, they said, oh, nobody can come unless they're, absolutely an agency. And then they said, no, they can come if they're part of it. And then they couldn't. And then it turned out the list just became, if you showed up, you were a member. So it is very confusing. I would have liked to have been on the committee. I'm grateful. I wasn't there that day, so I'm really grateful Mike's on it. That was just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Goldfarb?
Yeah, I attended yesterday's Council of Water Utilities meeting as well, and Pat Mulroy was interesting as usual. She's probably one of the most knowledgeable people on all things Colorado River, so always great to hear her perspective. She got a question, what I took away or what I thought was interesting, she got a question from somebody at the end about augmenting the Colorado River Basin system. And she said she thinks desal is going to play a major part in that. And I hadn't really heard that articulated before, but that's kind of an interesting concept. So she thinks desal is going to become very big. Otherwise, there's obviously not enough water in the system for the 7 states in Mexico. So, and she talked about some concepts of involving the Salton Sea and exchanging water and so forth. So I thought it was very interesting.
Could I make a comment just to that?
Sure.
I think that's an excellent point about that. I thought maybe that was part of why you see the Water Authority pushing for their new conveyance system, because part of their plan when they present it is that we'll use the desal, we'll save the IID water, and we'll use it to augment the Colorado or the Salton or Lake Mead. So it sounds like it's circulating.
She also talked about the possibility of pumping ocean
Yes.
water up into the Salton Sea.
Exactly.
And so exchanging some of that Mexico water.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
I also attended that meeting, I thought it was very interesting. She's a great speaker, I've seen her at a couple of conferences when she was working with Las Vegas, and she does a great job. My takeaway was a little different, and I like that she brought up desal, and unfortunately she brought up the Mexican desal plant, the mega plant, I think is the word she used, in Mexico, and I'm going, you can't do it in the States because of the environmentalists. But it kind of reminds me of, we used to can all the tuna fish in the country, most of it was canned right here in San Diego. And the environmentalists got involved because there were some porpoises getting mixed in they had to stop doing it, so they moved to Ensenada. They go to the same tuna fields, they collect the same porpoises, everything's the same except now it's done in Mexico. And that's the problem, if we're gonna have desal have to come from outside of our country, makes no sense. Especially when we have a beautiful intake 20 miles north of San Onofre, which can take in the water very easily and put it, I mean, it's already built there. That would make sense to make a really large desal plant. And then the water could get to San Diego County Water Authority through Camp Pendleton into Fallbrook, a lot less expensive to dig up Camp Pendleton, because there's no houses on it, and streets. I mean, it just makes sense, and we really need to start thinking about it. And what got me was, she brought up some of the doom and gloom was that, you know, you get to a point where the water won't go past the dam. You know, it'll be dry. Well, in that case, no matter what canal they build from Imperial Valley to us, ain't gonna matter, because it's gonna be empty. So I'm going, yeah, you know, there's a little counter-intuitive thinking there about water, and it is a lot of big questions that come up. But it just seems to me, again, that canal makes no sense if they could build it, but because if we run out of water, we're taking it from the same source, and that's not gonna be there. So anyhow, that was very good. And also went to, along with Jim Hernandez, to the San Diego North County EDC, which was held down at Miracosta College the end of last month, June 27th. Interesting, they met a lot of other water people there from the Liebenhain, and they did a lot of talking about the college and what they're doing. And they actually now have a bachelor's program in a junior college. It's pretty amazing, so I thought it was interesting. I'll let Jim comment on it. That's my two things.
Yes, with regard to that meeting, I was well impressed with the state representative. I can't remember her name, but she was about water, and so you know, it was good to know that everybody's up there thinking about water. And the other, back to the meeting here Tuesday, you know, there was, at least on my part, a little intrepidation about Metropolitan taking over that leadership program. But based on what we saw, Pat was there. She had a great conversation about the river, and it sprang additional conversations, because one of the things that we're going to need to do is find other sources of water, because we are the target, is what she said. Southern California is the target to be reducing the water take off of the Colorado, which infuriates the bejeebers out of me, because Northern California, oh, they want their water. Well, guess what? Build some storage so in the wet years you can keep some water. So there's going to be a big row about that, because everybody, the environmentalists, the farmers, the urban folks, everybody's got their cup in the water, and you know, their cup wants to get filled first. But towards us in San Diego County finding other sources, one of the things that, and I mentioned this morning at the Capital Committee meeting at Encina to our manager about the reclaimed water facility that we're proposing at some future date in our south parcel. He says what needs to happen is we need to push the water authority to
Purchase.
Join with us, or what was the term they said? Update their water master plan to include that as part of their water plan. I mean, just months ago, we heard, oh, we've got all the water we need. We don't need that the reclaimed water facility at Encina. Well, I don't know who said that, or I think it was actually the manager. But I think with the future of the river being a question mark, we need to begin to start looking as quickly as we can at the reclaimed water facility at Encina. And one of the other things he mentioned was the regional committee needs to update their environmental report to include them. And he says he doesn't even want to go to the meetings anymore because it's nothing going on. They're just man. So I don't know what you got to do, James, but put a boot in their neck. I've been trying to get on that committee for 9 years, but apparently they don't need it. So get something done over there. And those were the 2 meetings I attended.
Yeah, and throw my 2 cents in on the CAWA meetings is I always thought they were just breakfast meetings too. I never understood that, but 2 questions I have is, number 1, what happened to the money that they did have? Because we used to have a treasurer's report every month, and there was money in the kitty. So where'd that go? They haven't talked about that yet at all. And number 2, they're going through a whole lot of hoopla for a breakfast meeting. Although this meeting with Pat there was the best meeting I've ever attended. One of the best meetings I've ever attended at CAWA. Very informative information, everyone, nice crowd showed up. I mean, I like the idea of Met running it because they can bring in power to speakers. You know, with us, it was difficult to find speakers for the people that have done it in prior years. I'm sure they have a whole plethora, and I didn't notice any, you know, I think they're trying to say, hey, we're not that bad, and maybe they're not. You know, so, you know, give them a chance, give peace a chance. Someone said that once. So, okay. Director's comments, future agenda items. Anything we'd like to see on the future agenda? No?
Well, yes.
Yes. I knew there would be.
I think we need to have a closed session on this desal situation as soon as possible. And I'm fearful that, and it was brought up this morning, that, you know, they're in the search for a new manager. And I don't want to get our situation caught up in the transition. I think we need to put a stake in the ground and rapidly, because you indicated you're going to be meeting with Sandy, is it? Who's it? Sandy, yeah, you're going to be meeting with her, but I'd like to have you have something in your belt so that we can make a decision.
Yeah, I've met with Sandy on several occasions.
Yes.
She handed me some more documents yesterday.
Oh,
It is my
okay.
intention to put a closed session on the agenda for the next board meeting, which will be the first meeting in August.
Which I think is the 7th.
So that's 2 weeks,
7th of August.
plus or minus, huh?
Right.
Yeah, 7th
Okay.
of August.
Well, yeah, all right, well, if that's the best we can do, that's the best we can do. And I would like to find out when we're going to get the groundwater study delivered here and discussed. We at the engineering committee meeting, we had a presentation, there were some things that were going to change, and find out, so.
Yeah, James will give us an update.
What's the story, James?
And one question to add to that, because someone asked me about this. Is this study a paper study or is it a physical study? Because if it's a paper study, we already know what it's going to say. It's going to say what all the other paper studies have said. Is there a physical study?
Okay, so it is a paper study, but it says something very different because we took a different approach to it. So, and it is, the comments are in, we got the new study and presentation, staff is reviewing it now. And actually, as I was sitting there about 10 minutes ago, I just sent Robert Scholl, our engineer, an email that says, go ahead and prep it for the next board meeting or possibly the second meeting in August.
All right, well, you might as well stay there. Update on our septic study.
I got the, we just got the scope from Woodard and Curran. We just reviewed it. I sent it over to General Manager Prune for review, and I just sent an email a minute before I sent the previous email to Robert Scholl to say go and prep the purchase request for basically $29,990 for GM's approval to start the septic study, which fits within the board's $30,000 limit.
To start? Oh, to start the, okay.
And solar update.
I just sent an email a minute before I sent
boy, it's good.
So So that's what I've been doing. So we just got the final, as the board may recall, we're going through an environmental process. Robert Scholl is actually our head of our environmental side, so he just reviewed the mitigated negative declaration, very minor comments. We sent an email to the project manager at Terra Verde, and he gave me back a schedule. So essentially, we're going to be coming in August. I don't remember if it's the first or second meeting to circulate the mitigated negative declaration, and then coming, barring any major comments, coming in October to adopt it. With that schedule, the project manager of Terra Verde said they're going to send out the RFP for solar providers as early as tomorrow, but probably by the end of the week. And then with all the process of that going on, it'll come to the board for consideration. In other words, they'll have proposed bids and costing and new financial analysis done, probably first or second meeting in November for award.
Thank you.
And I have one question to ask GM Bruno. On August the 7th, we are bringing forward, new development fees.
Yeah, cap fees.
Cap fees are all gonna be brought forward and voted on that night.
That's the intent.
That's the intent of that?
That is, yeah, that is the plan, bring it forward August 7th.
Great. Thank you. Anything else?
Nope.
Adjourn. Thank you.